I just had a revelation. I just wanted to comment. So years ago, I was traveling from Fresno to San Diego to do a seminar, and I waited in line, PSA at the airport in Fresno, and I stood in line, waiting and waiting and waiting. There was some people between me and the boarding agent, and so finally I see they're closing up the plane, they're pulling up the ladder, and I said to the agent, "Excuse me," I said, "I think my plane's leaving." He said, "Your plane's going." I said, "Well, you got to stop that plane." He said, "Well, I can't stop that plane." I said, "I know you can." He said, "Well, I can't stop the plane." I said, "I've been standing here for 30 minutes behind these two people." And he said, "Why didn't you say something?" And I said, "Well, I was being polite. I was waiting." He said, "Well, this is my girlfriend." He said, "You should have said something." And I said, I went out and I jumped in my car. I had a little yellow Cadillac, and I just put it on the floor. And
you didn't break any rules, did you?
And when he got to, this is years before all this security stuff, I left the car out on the side of the road in Burbank at the airport. I jumped, I ran up the ladder, got on the plane, and I said to the stewardess, I said, "You guys just left me in Fresno," which is like, 150 miles. And they were kind of shocked. And I've kind of thought through the years, that seems like a miracle. It just doesn't seem possible that you could get there before the plane left in L.A. And then I was just listening to you, and I realized what happened. I was behind that steering wheel. I had no negative thoughts at all. I wasn't angry at the guy, and I wasn't feeling embarrassed because I didn't say anything. I just put it on the floor, and I was enjoying weaving through all this traffic and cutting over here and zipping over there and flying over there and never taking my foot off the gas and seeing if I could make it without ever touching the brakes or anything. And I made it up over the grapevine and down in it. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in because it was, go.
So would you say you had a clear vision of where you wanted to be?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
An unwavering vision of where you wanted to be?
All I saw was Burbank.
Would you call it a definiteness of purpose? Would
Definitely.
you call it a singular vibration?
People were waiting for me.
And in light of what you know about the source within you, would you say that your decision was already made and it was already a reality, and that somehow you found a way to be a perfect vibrational match to the outcome? You would accept no less. And so the universe delivered to you exactly as you demanded, exactly as you expected. So when we use the word demand, how does that settle? In other words,
not well with me.
It doesn't set well with you. It's really not that good of a word, because demanding is what you have to do to try to get yourself all pumped up to try to buck your own current. But when you're in the vortex, there's no current to overcome, because the only thing you ever had to overcome anyway is your own contradictory energy. Wow. Isn't that a wonderful thing to know? And when there isn't any, then the entire universe opens up for you just like that.
Thank you very much.
And to our mother, there are laws against most of what he did that day. Serious laws.
On your CDs, which I love, you talk about no karma. There's no such thing as karma.
Well, everyone who uses a label means something different by it. And if by karma you mean you are an eternal being, then we agree with that. It's just that a lot of people, when they use the word, are really looking at it from an entirely different vantage point than is ours. So we will not say there is not karma, because the way some people are looking at it, we are in agreement with. But what do you mean when you say karma?
Well, I'm in complete agreement with you.
Whatever it is.
Whatever, because I don't care. I think it's totally lame.
But
and an excuse to kind of, not be happy.
If by karma you mean, before I was in this body, I was source energy, and I achieved a vibration of such well-being that I extended that well-being here, and law of attraction responds to what I've got going on. Sometimes people are speaking of karma, like what goes around comes around,
right.
And law of attraction is a way of talking about that.
Right.
But a lot of people say when things are not going well in this moment of their physical life experience, it's karmic. I must have done something bad in a past life, and I'm paying for it now. And we are in utter disagreement with that, because everything that they're living now is in response to the vibration that they've got going now. And further, what you call the death experience, we lovingly refer to it to the croaking experience. That is the recycling into the vortex and renewing all that you know. In other words, it's sort of like the death experience is the vortex taking you in, and the birth experience is the vortex spitting you out. It's not quite like that, but sorta, because from the non-physical, you are pure positive energy, and then you were born to a mother who's been worrying about you for 9 months. And here you are, and now she's usually really worried about you. And so it's not as vortex-like what you were born into than the energy from which you have come.
So if you're thinking that karma is real, and that it's like if I do something bad today, tomorrow something bad is going to happen to me, and you're in this physical life, is that going to happen?
Well, you get what you expect, but here's the thing. There are 2 aspects of you that are offering vibration all of the time. And the source energy part of you is holding steady to the fullness of all that you have become. So you have to get rather resistant about something over a pretty extended period of time in order to trample the good karma. Mm-hmm. Now, we use karma because we want you to not push against the idea of it.
Right.
In other words, you really have to do some consistent, resistant thinking in order to disallow who you really are.
Gotcha. Okay.
Expectation. You said you get what you attract, which is almost like saying you attract what you attract, which is just fine because it's a fine way of saying it. But here's a way of saying it that really speaks to everything that you've been saying and we've been saying, and that is you get what you expect. And an expectation is just a pattern of thought. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking. And if you keep thinking it long enough, then you develop this pattern of expectation, and then you begin manifesting, and then you prove yourself right.
Right.
In the beginning, Esther would say to us, as we were coaxing her from some of her patterns of thought that were not serving her, and she would say, but Abraham, it's true. And we would say, that's not a good criteria. There are a lot of things that are true that you don't want to attract into your experience. So rather than using the criteria, is it true? Because there are plenty of things you don't want to experience that are. Why not use the criteria, does it feel good when I contemplate it? Because if it feels good when you contemplate it, that means the larger part of you is contemplating it. And therefore it is a solution or an answer that you've been looking for. But if it doesn't feel good when you contemplate it, nothing about it could serve you. Let it go.
Okay.
When you understand that the universe is responding to your vibration, so what's manifesting is an indicator of what you've got going on, then it's helpful to pay attention to what's going on and to acknowledge that I am the creator of it, regardless of whether it pleases you or doesn't please you. What happens to a lot of people, and the reason that things like a sort of screwy version of karma, or all kinds of screwy versions of what man calls God, or of what man refers to as heaven, or life before this, or life after this. There are so many really distorted beliefs that man is holding. But the primary reason for almost all of those is that when you stand in a place living something that doesn't make sense to you, then you try to fashion a story to explain it. In other words, if you've been taught that these are the rules, and that if you keep these rules, you will thrive. So you keep those rules, you try to do it as best you can to the letter of the law, but you don't thrive. Then your questioning mind says, what am I missing? And if your logic says, well, wait, you can't be missing anything, because when you were little, they said, go to church, and you did. And the church said, do these things, and you did. And the church says, don't do those things, and you didn't. So in your way of thinking, you've done everything right, and yet you're still not thriving, then a sort of logic takes over and you say, there must be more to this. I must have done something at a time that I don't remember, and I'm still paying for that. Now, that's sort of logical, isn't it, under those conditions? Or what about someone who has been taught that if you keep these rules, you'll thrive, and if you break them, you won't, and you break them? Then you're in a place of expecting negative compensation for having broken the rules, and when it comes, it confirms your negative, and from our point of view, irrational belief that you are being punished for breaking a rule. When you're not being punished for breaking a rule, you're getting what you expected. You see, you're getting what you practiced the vibration of. So no one can even begin to make sense of their own life experience until they understand that they are source energy in a physical body, but that while they're in this physical body, the source energy part still exists. And if you can make yourself understand that these two powerful, vibrating aspects of you are always having a relationship with one another, and your dominant intent is about this relationship between you and you, now you've got it figured out. Now you can dovetail with karma, or whatever you want to call it. You can dovetail with the whole of who you are. It makes sense in a karmic sense. It makes sense in a religious sense. It makes sense in a non-religious sense. It makes sense in a scientific sense. It makes sense in a physics sense. In other words, the laws of the universe make sense. And when you find a way that you can make them work for you, now you've got control of your experience, and now you've got a joyful life experience, and now you're fulfilling your reason for being, because it's all about joy and expansion, and now it's all working for you, you see. And then it doesn't bother you when other people talk about karma in a screwy way. It doesn't bother you when other people talk about religion in a screwy way, or drugs in a screwy way, or politics in a screwy way. Because the fact of the matter is, there's so many people talking about so many things, and almost none of them see it just like you do. So if you're looking for satisfaction by finding a group who agrees with you, then you're looking for love in all the wrong places, because they're fickle. They might agree today, but they won't tomorrow. You see, you've got no consistency to your guidance. But when you get hold of your emotions, and you know what they mean, and you care about how you feel, and so you deliberately and consistently guide yourself into alignment with who you really are, then your life just works for you. No matter what the subject is, or no matter what aspect of your life you're focused upon.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that you would say that, because when I was younger, I broke all the rules, all the laws, did all the drugs, and everything went my way. I mean, literally, everything went my way.
Because, Mother,
seriously,
you had the good fortune of not being made to believe in the wrongness of your behavior. So you didn't split your own energy. In other words, if you can make your children feel guilty, you've managed to separate them from who they are. If you can make your children feel guilty, you've managed to separate them from who they are. Right. Because you cannot make their inner being feel guilty. If you could make their inner being feel guilty, they wouldn't feel guilty, because they'd be residing with their inner being. And guilt is feeling some way different than their inner being feels. Oh, that was really good.
Really good. But they tried to make me feel guilty. I mean, I was brought up really in a religious family, and all that stuff was bad, and I just wouldn't let them. I really, absolutely, under no circumstance.
So as we hear you here, rather than a sort of defiance about their wrongheadedness and what they were trying to get you to believe, what your inner being feels is appreciation, because they did the best they knew how to do. Mm-hmm. And through the process, you just sent more rockets into your vortex, gave yourself much more opportunity to expand, and when you came into alignment, you were a whole lot better for it.
And look where I am now. Right? Sitting here in front of you.
We say that to everyone. Where you are is a byproduct of what you have lived. And that is the best reason of all to appreciate everything that happened, because it has led to this powerful point of understanding. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.